Progressive Business Conferences would like to welcome you to today's program, Google AdWords Updates, Manage Campaigns and Improve Performance. My name is Krista, and I will be your conference moderator for today's program. Today's webinar is 90 minutes in length. This 75-minute presentation will include a 15-minute interactive question and answer session. The entire program is being recorded and can be purchased by using the order form included with the conference materials. Please listen to this important instruction as it will help to ensure the best possible experience during the program. If you should have any technical problems, please call Progressive Business Conferences at 800-964-6033, and a representative will assist you. We cannot help you unless you alert us to the problem. Please remember that it is a violation of our copyright to record the conference. Now, I would like to introduce your speaker, Tina Arnoldi. Tina?
Hi, thank you, Krista, and welcome everyone to today's webinar on Google AdWords. As Krista said, my name is Tina Arnoldi, and I will be walking you through some different things happening in Google AdWords. So here's kind of the agenda for this afternoon. We are going to just kind of do an introductory slide about the account structure. This is helpful for people whether you are new to AdWords or if you've been using it for a while. You might catch some things that you might want to kind of restructure in your own account. I'm going to talk to you about writing ads, choosing keywords, and some of these ads and keywords too. If you've been using AdWords for a while, it might sound like, well, we already know how to do that, but I want to give you some tips because we said we would talk today about some ways that maybe you can save money and get better returns on your ad. The ad extensions they're not necessarily one of the new features, but it's one that I find a lot of advertisers are not yet using, and it's very beneficial to have these in your account. So I'm going to walk you through what that looks like. Talk about ad scheduling, and ad scheduling is a cost savings. So you think about when people are buying, when is your target audience going to respond to an ad? So we'll talk about ad scheduling too. Location bid adjustments. Your customers may not be everywhere, or you might find that some areas do better than others. You want to target different geographical areas. Talk about the display network and some of the changes that have happened this year. And so kind of throughout, we're going to, I want to show you some common mistakes and just some areas in each of these where we can look at some cost savings for your account. What we won't be doing today, which could be webinars for another time, is we will not be talking about the shopping ads or video ads. We're going to focus on those text and image ads. So which text, I would say the google.com, and then we'll be talking about the display network. Just real briefly, I want to tell you about the account that we're going to be looking at today. So I'll just go over there real quick and just show you what this account is about. So I have this little book blog that I keep it's just a hobby. I enjoy reading and I like sharing, different things that I've read. This isn't a monetizing blog for me. What I do is when I'm teaching AdWords though, so I'm not showing my client data, I will put some money into this account because I can get clicks for 5 or 10 cents. So it's just to show you what some real data looks like, that again, not giving you any kind of confidential information. So I just wanted to let you know where we're going to be pulling from today. So the account structure. Now, even if you've been doing AdWords for years and years, I hope you bear with me for a minute because sometimes I talk to people who've been doing AdWords for a while, and when they look at this screen and think it through, they realize that there's some better structure that they can do in their accounts. So your AdWords account should be a company, right? So that should represent your company, your website, and then underneath the account, you'll have campaigns. And a good way to structure it is to have your campaigns set up that correspond with the navigation on your site. So I'm going to give you an example of a retailer. So a retailer who sells has a women's department and a men's department, right? So you have a campaign for your women and a campaign for the men. And then your ad groups would be just different sections underneath those campaigns. So for the women's campaign, we might have formal dresses, and swimsuits and a number of other things. So you would have an ad group about the formal dresses. That would be different from your casual dresses or summer dresses or whatever category you have. And then the group, if you had one for bathing suits, it would be just about bathing suits, or it might be women's shoes. Or so you're thinking in the big picture for how your site is set up, and then ad groups underneath that will give you a more detail about each one. This structure is really important in terms of money savings, because if you have a group you have one ad group and it's all of your women's dresses, your keywords aren't going to be tightly themed. You're going to have casual, formal, business, nighttime, evening. So you're not going to have those really tight groups, and you're going to get a lot of clicks that may not be the best returns. You might not see much of a return on investment for those. So again, this is just a very simple chart, and it's one that you might even want to have in front of you as you review your account, just to say, okay, do we have this set up right? Is there maybe can we make kind of tighter ad groups and tighter themed ads? So I'm going to go ahead. We'll jump right into writing our ads. So a good AdWords ad is, again, it sounds simple, but being relevant to the keywords in the group. So if you have an ad for formal dresses, you want to have some keywords that are about formal or evening wear, or so you're not just doing dresses. You really want to make sure you're specific. You want to consider some of the long tail keywords, and a long tail keyword is just one that's more than a couple words. So evening gowns for women, so you see that you have a few more words than just a one-word keyword is very tough. Figure out how you stand out from your competitors. Of course, what is different about you, and it's more than just saying, well, we're better than they are. You want to have something that you can highlight about your business. You want to have a call to action. What are people doing when they click on your ad? Are they going to buy, donate, learn, contact, sign up? So you see you're asking them to do something. What's really important is having a relevant page on your site dedicated for your ad. And again, this is something that I see people who have been advertising for years still make this mistake, is they will create an ad and they send people to their home page. And you don't want to make people work for it. So they should click on your ad and go directly to the relevant page. So here's some questions that might help with your ad is, again, what sets your business apart? So if you look at the left, it says, we won an award, products made in the U.S., we're always on time, maybe we have 24/7 service, we're open 365 days a year. So, what's a little bit different about you? And then some of the details. You'll see here in the middle column for education, evening classes or convenient locations, or this is maybe where you would want to say your 24/7 customer service. And then again, the call to action. What are people doing? What are you expecting them to do when they click on your ad? So let's take a look at this example. So this is one, I just pulled off online. You'll see the top, the header is your brand term and keyword in headline. And I apologize, I see that keyword does have a typo on there on the top right. So this has a brand name and then food processors. So if you have a well-known brand or you want to get your brand out there, that's a good idea to include it in the headline if you can. But the food processors, you're seeing that subject line. It's very clear what that is. So in this first line, we have a benefit. So I can prep food faster, with this brand. So I'm prepping food and it's going to be faster because I'm using this brand. The second line, there's an offer and a call to action, which is good. So you want people to shop and it's going to be 10% off. So that's your offer. And then the custom display URL. And I especially want to point this out because this is another one I see a lot in accounts. Your destination URL in your ad has to be where the person is going. It's got to include your website domain. Your display URL after the initial domain of this mixama.com, after that it can be anything. So food/processors may not be an actual URL on their site, but that's okay because they have their domain name included in there. What's another good idea to do is if you have, I usually tell people to do 2 ads per group. So if you have these ad groups and they've got 5, 10 ads in them, you might want to pause some of them. The reason why is when you're running too many different ads, it's hard to see what to identify what the difference was. There's so many different variables. You don't know which one was the one or why it got you the click. So that's why you would not want to run too many at a time. But I definitely suggest doing 2 at a time and just having slight variations. So in this case, what you might do is you might want to keep the same custom display URL. You might even want to have the same offer and call to action in the second line, but you might want to reverse the headline in the first line. So your headline might be prep food faster. So you're getting that benefit in line 1, and then, you're getting that benefit in the headline, and then the Mixama food processors, you're getting the brand and keyword on the first line. So you can see what you're doing of the 4 lines here. We're just switching line 1 and line 2. That doesn't guarantee you're going to get better results. You might find that that variation doesn't do well at all. But the point is that you're just changing something minor to help you figure out what really made the difference for your ad. Okay, so keywords. Keywords are your money leakers, right? So we're going to talk about some of the different types, and then I'm going to show you how you can manage some of your costs here. So the keyword match types. The broad match is the one that really can get you in a little bit of trouble. So if I were to search, if I said a broad match for Alaska cruise and somebody said Alaska or cruise Alaska, or even something, I hate Alaska cruises, so any kind of variation is going to trigger your ad. So you might be getting a really broad audience, but they're not really necessarily buyers. So you want to be careful with these broad terms. I like the phrase match. That's one I use quite a bit, is that you can have some variation. So if I were to have Alaska cruise and I had those quotes before and after, it'll show up if somebody says Alaska cruise. It'll show up for best Alaska cruises. So like a best, the word before it, or Alaska cruise in July, right? So I have that term in July that I'm adding, but I also have the term Alaska cruise, which is my keyword. So this gives you, again, a little bit more variation. So that's your phrase term. It's quotes at the beginning and the end. The third one is exact terms, and that's where you are really saying just Alaska cruise. So it's that word or phrase with close variations, but you can't have anything before or after. So if somebody did a search on best Alaska cruise in July, it wouldn't trigger your ad because you have those extra terms in there. The one I'm going to show you is the negative keywords. So negative are words where you do not want your ad to show. And this is probably one of the biggest takeaways for today, is something that you can do to save some money in your account using negative keywords. So I want to dig into this a little deeper. So again, that's my key point here for starting out, is that you can save money with negative keywords. So here's some negative keywords examples, and I'll show you this in an account. So if you are providing services, you are an attorney, you don't want to have somebody who's doing searches for legal classes or legal jobs or anything like that. You are providing service. You don't want to have your ad clicked on by people who want to learn about your field. You want to sell your service. Another one that a lot of people use, and I'm going to show you a great keyword list here in just a minute, but free, used, pictures, definition, so different words that you might again, depending on your business, but that you probably would want to exclude from your keywords, from your AdWords account. So this link here, now I do not expect you to write this down or remember this. I'm going to have this, I want to pull it up and show it to you, because if you did a search for negative keyword list, this article from TechWise would probably be your first result, and I'll show it to you and I'll show you how you use it. But if you do want to just note TechWise, TechWysc, if you just do search on, TechWise negative keyword list, then you'll be able to find it there as well. So let me show you what this looks like. I'll get over to my browser. So this is the list. So again, I said if you do a list for a negative keyword list, you just Google that. This is the article that you're probably going to come up with. And I use this one all the time when I'm setting up a new account or cleaning a new account or an existing account. So you can see here, free, cheap, right? Unless you are selling something that's free and cheap, that's probably a word you don't want. Again, hiring, unless you are an employment, or a recruiter or search agency, you probably don't want to pay for people who are looking for a job in your field. This one, again, education for people who are learning about your field. That might not be something that you want to pay for. Again, unless you're a review rating site, you don't want to pay for people who are doing that either. So this is why, again, this is a really great list to get you started. So let me show you how that's used in this account. So again, we're in this little hobby blog, book blog site, and I'm going to come over here to my shared library. What's great about the shared library is I can create this campaign negative keyword list, and then anytime I create a new books campaign, I can just say, instead of saying, okay, I want to add all 75 of these or whatever words I think are relevant, I can just go ahead and take my list and apply it to the campaign. So again, I'm in my shared library. I go to view, and here's my negative keyword list. So right now I just have 43 in there. So I can go ahead and take a look at that. And, so I pulled a lot of the ones from that list, and I see free, I do see cheap. I'm going to include the word buy. The reason I'm saying that is because this book blog, let me make this screen a little bit smaller here. These are just reviews. I'm not selling these books on here. I'm just putting reviews or comments on them. So if I say buy, and I've now added that to my list, if anybody is saying buy business book, that's not going to trigger my the campaign for my book blog, because again, I'm not selling, I just want to share, reviews of books that I've enjoyed. So once you have your list, if you edit it or you add keywords, and so let's say you have this list, and this is going to really be pretty much what you need for all campaigns in your account, you go ahead and just select it, you do apply to campaigns, and then all of the campaigns that you want to apply this list to, you can do that right in here. So you're not manually adding these keywords into each individual campaign. So that's just such a huge win. And if you have not already applied this in your account, you're going to see an incredible amount of cost savings here once you get these negative words in. So if there's nothing else you take away from, the next hour and 15 minutes or so we have together, I really encourage you to get a negative keyword list in your account. So let's come back here and talk about the keyword bid versus search term, because this is another way that you can look for words that are negative. Okay, so a keyword bid, that is what you as the advertiser you're saying bidding on. So if someone searches for casual dresses, you're going to bid $3 on that. So I'm not saying that that's a good bid or bad bid or a good keyword. I just want to give you an example that you're saying I'm going to pay when people use the word casual dresses. The search term is what the searcher actually used. So I might go on your website and say casual dresses for teens, or something like that. And depending on if that fits with one of your keyword types, it could trigger your keyword. So the keyword is what you as the advertiser bids on, and the search term is what somebody on Google.com actually uses. So I'm going to show you a couple screenshots here, and then we're going to go back over into the account. So the search terms report, the reason I wanted to point out those differences is here we're on the keywords tab. So it's got all the words that I'm willing to pay for. And then I'm looking at the search terms, which is telling me the words people actually typed. So what you might find is that as you go through these terms, you look at all the terms that were actually typed, you're going to see words that you do not want to pay for people to bid on, so you can exclude them. So even though you will start with an initial list of keywords, you might come across, as your ad has been running for a while, you look at the search terms and there's words that just are not relevant to you, and you discover them later, and then you can exclude them so that they don't trigger your ad again in the future. So, and again, I will show you this in the account, but just take a look at this screenshot with me. So if somebody typed in, so I can see people typed in book reviews, read book reviews, book review summary, and those are all things, that's what I do. I just write reviews, write some summaries of books, and so those are good words for me. I want to trigger my ad for that. The very bottom, somebody said cutting for stone book review. So, my mistake is I probably had book review in there as a broad match, so it triggered a very specific title, and I don't want to be triggered for a title that's not on my site. So this is a way that you can, another way for you to kind of save some money along the way. And I'll go ahead into the account now and show you what this looks like. So open this back up. And so I'm still in my books account, and I'm going to keywords. And you can see the last time, I put some data in here was earlier this year. So I'm on the keywords tab. I'm going to details and then search terms. Now, before I do that, let me just point out on the keywords tab, these are the words that I told Google I am willing to pay for a click. And one thing I do always want to point out since I use this account for demo is you'll see here I've got clicks for 10 cents. This is not going to be realistic for most accounts, but like I said, this is the one I like to use for demos because there's nothing confidential about it, and I can get cheap clicks that I don't want to throw a bunch of money into a site that I'm really not trying to monetize. So I'm on my keywords, details, search terms. Okay, so we can see what's going on here. So somebody said, read book reviews, and I didn't have that as an exact match, but I thought, well, that makes sense for my site. I do want people to, read, who are wanting to read book reviews. So when I selected that, I added that as a keyword. Let's see, the promise of, so this was a very specific title, and, I can't account for every single title that's out there in the world of books, but it can probably give me some ideas on how I need to restructure this a little bit better. So again, this is showing you that the words that somebody typed into Google.com. So even once you set up your negative keyword list, again, depending on how often you come into your account, whether it's daily, weekly, kind of depends on the budget and the size of the account. But I would make sure that one of your homework assignments is that you're in this keywords and you look at those search terms so you can figure out where maybe you shouldn't be spending money. Okay, so that's another one that's going to save you a lot of money that, even for ones that you didn't think of in advance, that you can at least stop them from, showing your ads in the future. So how else can you find some keywords? So you're seeing, the search terms that people typed in, and you're deciding, yes, I want to add that into my ad, or I potentially want to exclude it. The other thing you can do is use the keyword planner. So I'll switch back over to that screen for you and get into my account here. Your keyword planner is up here in Tools. And I'll just go through this quickly since some of you have been using AdWords, but I'll come into my Tools and I say Keyword Planner. Very simple. And give it a minute to do its thinking here. And I'll say let's find some new keywords. So I will say my product or service is just book reviews. And for simplicity, I'm going to just choose my home page. I'll just make that my landing page, even though that's generally not necessarily best practice. But I'm going to leave all the other defaults on here. So I'm going to just keep it very simple. This is what I'm doing. This is the page, and I'm going to go ahead and get some ideas. So, and what happens here, look at my keyword ideas. And let me close this, give this a little more room. So these are some of the things that Google's suggesting. You know, book reviewers, book reviews online, books review, fiction books review. So it'll go through and they'll give you some suggestions and how much it's searched. Just because Google suggested a keyword, it doesn't mean it's a good one for you. So for example, if I don't have a lot of fiction book reviews, I might not want to include that. But this is just another tool, especially if you're kind of stumped trying to think through some keyword ideas, that you just come up to the tools and the keyword planner. So ad extensions. As I mentioned, this is not a brand new feature, but from a lot of the accounts that I've gone into, I have seen that people are not taking advantage of this yet. So the ad extensions are it's not about saving money in your account, but you may get a little bit better return. And I understand now, you know, from different sources that Google is considering these ad extensions when it's looking at whether or not to run your ad in the auction, you know, so whether or not it's going to show your ad. So let me go through this line by line before we look into the account. So here's a couple ads that are about women's shoes. I don't know why this seems to be my go-to example, but for what it's worth, I'll show you what we have here. So let's take a look at the top one for JCPenney. So if you see it's got the ad, a couple ad lines, and then it's got an address and a phone number. And then you'll see a couple links beneath it for these different types of shoes. So what's interesting here is in a normal ad, you know, you have your headline, you have your destination URL, and then you have 2 lines for your ad. But look at all this other stuff. They've got stuff about their Google Plus. They've got a street, a phone number, additional clicks, options. I'll explain what this is in just a second. So all of this screen real estate is for JCPenney. So what they have for the phone number, they're using what's called a call extension, which of course makes sense that somebody could, you know, displaying the number, and if it's on a mobile, you have the click to call option. Then you have the location, so you're seeing the exact address. And you can also do the Google Plus extension if you're getting a lot of success there, that you can connect those two. Then you have the option for call out and for site links. So this site links, this women's flats, women's boots, pumps and heels, sandals, and flip-flops, what those are links to the exact page on the site for those items. So you can see they're getting granular. They're not just sending you to women's shoes. They're going to send you to the sandals and flip-flops page. So that's what it means by an extension. It extends that ad. The other thing is you can do a call out, and a call out is not, it doesn't link anywhere, but it's good for features that you want to highlight, such as free shipping, overnight delivery, you know, something that kind of sets you apart. Bottom right, we can see the same thing with Payless. You know, they've got a little bit more information because they are using those extensions. So this is really another thing I just encourage you to check, make sure you're using it in your account. And let's go ahead, actually, and let me ask if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat box, I am curious if anyone is using ad extensions. So if you wouldn't mind just putting a yes or no in the chat box. I just kind of want to see what kind of questions, or if people are saying that they are using it or not. So either in the chat box or the Q&A, just a yes or no that you're using extensions. And just so kind of for your information, I have this on a separate screen, so although this isn't popping up on our shared screen, I can tell you some of the things I'm seeing here from people. So I'm seeing, okay, so quite a few people actually are not using it. I do see a not yet, which that's good. So I'm glad that not yet indicates that you're going to be using it. A few of you are. Okay, well good. I'm glad this was new to a fair amount of people. So that's just helpful for me to know as I go over here into the account. I want to, again, show you how to set this up for some of you who are new. And for those of you who have been using it, I'll show you something too that you might, just something to consider if you edit any of your extensions. So I'll get back out of here, go back to the AdWords account. I'll come back over to my campaign. And it's your ad, you'll see a tab for it, Ad Extensions. So that's for those of you who are getting started. You're going to have a tab for it. If for some reason you don't see that tab, all the way over here to the right, you'll see that there's additional tabs that you can add. So just check this little option here if you don't see your ad extensions. So here we go. So for the ad extensions, what I have, and there weren't any triggered during this time, but I have it that links, here's one, to nonfiction book reviews. Let me hover there. So what this does is on the blog site, it goes specifically to the ones that have the label of nonfiction. I'll just show you what that means. So with a blog, I'm doing my blog posts, I label it, and I'll say nonfiction. And so that's what this page is. Very simple. Just shows the label of some of the nonfiction books that I have listed. So that's what that extension does. Same thing here. This will take you straight to the business books. So if I have a label here, well, this is going to move a little slow today, but similar to what you saw here with the nonfiction is that you would have that same thing with the business books. The call out extension, again, that's not any kind of link. See, so I do a new call out, and I won't save this since it doesn't apply, but it would be something like this: free shipping. Free shipping, open 365 days, 24/7 service. So something, again, that's not bringing them to a link on your site, but it's something about you that you want to highlight. Now, something I want to come back in here for the site links. And this is just a comment. This is both for people whether you've been doing the site links or for those of you who are getting started. I want to point out that you can do your new site link, and this is, the link text, and this is the URL. So you'll see that, you kind of saw that in the JCPenney ad where you have people who, JCPenney, they had the sandals and flip-flops and then the URL there. You can also do a description. So some people just go to the default to just these two options, but even though the description is optional, I recommend including that. So, and this can be anything, sandals for everyday wear and evenings out. I don't know. I'm not saying this is a good one. I just wanted to show you what this could look like. So then when the link text, is displayed in the URL, you can also have a 2-line description underneath it. So if you have extensions already and you don't have these descriptions filled out, I recommend adding a couple sentences there, again, too, because it's about that real estate on Google, that maybe you can get a little more space there with your ad. So those are your ad extensions. Ad extensions do not cost anymore. It's the same clicks, but again, it's just, as it says, think of it as extending your ad. So I recommend that. And again, if you don't see this tab in your account, just come over here and you might need to enable it. So, and again, I showed that here where just the tab, you had to enable it, and it shows you just some of the existing site links for this particular account. Okay, ad scheduling. Anyone, and I'll just ask another question, is anyone here using ad scheduling? And in the Q&A, just say yes or no. I'm just curious. I want to kind of watch the responses. And okay, I see, and we'll do the questions at the end. And I see a question there about explaining call out again. So I'm going to just make a note. We'll go ahead and go over that at the end. So the ad scheduling. Anyone else? Okay, so kind of a mix. Some yes, some no. Let me tell you, this is some reasons why you might want to use ad scheduling. If you are a e-commerce, your retail store, people buy online. If you find that people are coming to, they click on your ad and they come to your website, but no one from the 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. clicks or buying. They just have insomnia, they can't sleep, and they're just surfing around. You might not want to show your ads during that time. Another case is if you're traditional 9 to 5, and I mean real traditional as far as you don't have any kind of support or service or phone answered after 5 p.m., maybe you don't even want your ads running then. You just want it to be when you're accessible. Another time is if you are, you're open for breakfast from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And now, of course, yes, people may shop or search the night before for a breakfast place, but if you find that you get a lot of last-minute traffic, you're in a tourist location, maybe you want to run an ad scheduled for the morning hours in your zip code and kind of get those people who are just looking for a place real quick to eat. So what we'll look at is I'm going to show you the dimensions, day, time, and then the campaign settings and ad schedule. So you can see when people are coming, and then if you have something that you want to change that you don't necessarily, that you don't want to run it during a certain time, we'll take a look at that too. So again, I'm showing you here the tab here on the screen, and then we're going to go head over the dimensions where you can view your day and time, day of the week. And then in settings is where you would do the ad schedule. And I know I showed you those two slides quickly, but I'm going to come back over, I'm going to show them to you actually in an account. So I'll come back over to my AdWords screen. So the first thing, dimensions. So this is the dimension. This answers the question, when are people clicking on my ads? What day, what time, what hour? So we're getting on day there, but let's look at day of the week. This is a very small sample size, and this isn't giving you a lot of information, but if you can see that, your costs varied on a different day, or the number of clicks on a different day, or, just you're starting to get information about when people are coming to your site. And the other one is the hour. And this is what I mean if you have those people, those 4 a.m. shoppers, or maybe clicking but not buying, then maybe you don't want to be running your ads at 4 o'clock. So, 4 o'clock in the morning or any hours when people are not buying. So those are your dimensions where you can look at your day and time information. The settings is then where you would do your ad scheduling. So the ad schedule, right now these are just running all day. But you can come in, again, and your campaigns, you can just change for one campaign. So I have a client right now, we're doing a campaign that runs just on Monday mornings. So that might be, a campaign just to target that day of the week or hour of the day. But if you don't want it to set with this default here of all days, I go ahead to my ad schedule. And so right now, by default, they're shown anytime 24/7. Create a custom schedule, and this is where you can start to get into those details. You can say, the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Maybe you don't want your ads to run on a Saturday. Or if you are just a Monday through Thursday business, maybe you want to just run it for those specific days. But you have that power to control when your ads are going to be shown. So again, I would start over here. Let me cancel out of that. I would start over here in dimensions. Just start to get some information about when people are coming. And of course, you can look at your analytics too to see when people are coming. And then once you know that maybe you don't want it to run a certain time of the day or week, then you would come into your settings and your ad schedule. Okay, so that's another one that can be a cost savings if you're getting a lot of clicks that aren't from buyers. So the next one, location bid adjustments. So a location bid adjustment could be if you're, an obvious one is if you are a brick and mortar and people are only coming to store, within 20 miles of your zip code. You find that's where most of your customers are from. Well, then you don't want to pay, throughout the state or without the country. Another thing is maybe you are an online retailer and you find that the, New York and New Jersey, Northeast area is a lucrative market for you. But you find that over on the West Coast, California it's not a lucrative market for you. You might not want to put as much money into your West Coast campaign. You want to have it more on your Northeast. So these are some cases where you might have a location bid adjustment, is if you have customers where you want to have, you just want to target them in a certain area, or you might even want to exclude a certain area. You just know you're not going to get business in a particular area, and you have a tight budget, so you don't want to target that area. So, again, so why would you use it is where do your buyers live? And part of that is looking at your data over time. If you have a site where people can access you, nationwide, so you get somebody visiting your site, but you really want to know who the converters are. And you might want to adjust for specific regions. Even if you're a national brand, like I said, maybe New York is a great business for you and California is not. So you want to decide which ones to add or to exclude or where to put more money into. So I'll show you this again. I'm in a real account. So just showing you the screenshot. We're on the Dimensions tab where we're looking at date, time, hour. This is also where we would look at geography. So go ahead and get out of here and come back over to the AdWords. So I'm back on the Dimensions tab where we were just looking at this hour, time of day, date, and now I want to look at geographic. So with geographic, you see right now it's just defaulting to the country. So that may not be very telling. With many of these tabs in here in AdWords, you have an option where you can modify the columns to be exactly what you want to display. So say I modify that, and I will pick city. Let's do city. Yeah, so I'll leave region, I'll do city, and let's see what comes up with here. So I go ahead and say apply. And actually, I should probably reorder that. That's okay. We'll do this for now. So this is showing me the city over here on the right. So I can do this by number of clicks, and I see one. Google just couldn't identify where that one was coming from, but we've got Orlando, Athens, Atlanta. So whether or not this means anything for you, it may or may not, but I just want to show you how you can get at that data where you can look at your dimensions. And then over here in settings, the same way where you adjusted your ad schedule is where you can adjust your locations. So whether you can adjust to say I want to bid more here or less, you can also adjust for whether or not you even want to show in one area. Okay, so we'll come back over here to the presentation. Whoops. Sorry about that. I had too many windows going. So the next thing I want to talk about is the display network. And again, I'll just watch the box here. I am curious if anybody is using the display network or if you are just doing search. And if you don't know what the display network is, it's on the sites such as about.com or weather.com or those kinds of things. So if you can just say both, or if you do search only, just curious how many people are using it. Okay, yeah, so I see some people are not doing the display network yet, a couple doing both. Okay. Yeah, okay, somebody was noted they were not aware of the display network. Okay, so this is helpful. I appreciate the comments because it helps me kind of adjust to make sure I'm speaking to the audience, to your specific needs. So right now we're going to shift from google.com to talking about the display network, which are those Google partner sites. So display network, a few different things, and I did see in the chat box that somebody commented they are doing remarketing. So let me tell you what each of these things are, and then we'll spend some time look at the display network. And again, as mentioned earlier, we'll look at some of those changes for 2015 before we move over to the Q&A. So we're still on target that we'll have at least 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. So the topics are sites about specific topics. I know, very simple, but if you you're looking for a site about, sports. Maybe you sell sports equipment and you want to go to the sites where people are talking about the, latest trends in sports or certain games or teams. That would be a topical site. Interests are based on the third-party data. This is where, the interest in remarketing can both seem to be a little creepy, but the interests are, based on third-party data, what you seem to be interested in based on your browsing habits. So if my profile indicated that I'm interested in sports and I'm on weather.com, I might see a sports ad, so it's not weather.com isn't about sports teams, but my browsing habits indicated that I'm interested in sports, so I might see an ad displayed based on that. The keywords, so again, interest is you're interested, but the ad may not be specific, to the content topic, to the page, what's on that page. It's your interest as a browser. Keywords are when you want to, target not just to the site topic, but to specific keywords on the display or content network. And you can use some of these things, in combination. And we'll talk about placements, and we'll talk a little bit about remarketing. I love placements, and I'll tell you one of the tricks here with placements I'm going to show you in a minute is that if I've found that on sites where it's too expensive to advertise, become an advertiser, some of those sites are ones that will accept placements. So they are opted into the Google Display Network. So if you cannot afford to put an ad on one of those sites, this is a way for you to get around that, which is really cool. So you can see I'm kind of geeking out about that part, which I definitely want to show you. And then the remarketing, which I said, is that's the one too where you get a little creepy. So you've probably noticed, and I'll go back to women's shoes, you get online for some company, I'm not going to name them because I've got a couple of them who follow me around a little too much, but you look at your women's shoes and then everywhere you go on the internet, you see an ad for it. And so that's remarketing. We'll talk about some of those pros and cons too. So the display planner, you can jump right in and say, I want to go after these interests or these placements or these, websites. But this, just like the keyword planner, this is going to help you get ideas. So the screenshot, and we'll go into the account, shows that, customers are interested in books. So I just went ahead and picked that category and the landing page, that home page, and then I said, let's just go ahead and get some ideas. So, and we'll show you, again, I am going to get in there to show you. But this is where with the display network too, as you start getting ideas, know that you can do text ads, image, video, and then, on mobile sites. So this is where you can get really creative. You go beyond just the text and an ad. So here's what this screenshot looks like. And so the top left, it says the topic of books and literature, which I just had in that previous screen. The top right, you're going to see the landing page. So what Google is saying, okay, I see that you want to you have a landing page you're going to use in your ad of books.tinarnoldi.com. That's what you're telling me in the top right. The top left, you're indicating that this is going to be about books. And then so at the bottom, they're saying, well, here's maybe some lists that you want to target. And you look at that first one, Publishers Weekly. I don't know that would be one that I could afford to put an ad on. I don't know what their ad market is. The Reader Cafe, that seems like it could be a good one for me because it's just, fellow book lovers. So let's go ahead and come on over to the account and we'll take a look at these together. So the same place where you went for your keyword planner, you're coming up here for your tools, and now it's the display planner. So display planner is we're looking at, these other networks. So this time I'm going to just say books as a keyword. And actually, let's see. I wonder if they would do book. Let's see if it comes up for book reviews as a keyword. Landing page, and I'm going to say get placement ideas. So this is where you can indicate that you want to try to go after to get your ad on, placed on specific sites. So I go for my get placement ideas, and let's see what we come up with. Let it do its thinking. Okay, so here's some that they are suggesting. This I know is a good one because this is Goodreads is just a site, just a book lover site. People post their reviews on there. Publishers Weekly, that one came up too. And so I keep running through here. I can see a list of sites where maybe I want to have my ad. What I'm seeing over here on the right is it's telling me what ad formats this site will take. So they're going to take text. So just like you would do a text for a Google ad, you can do the same thing on these partner sites. They're going to do different size images. telling me these skyscraper, big image ads are not accepted. They're not doing mobile ads, but they are doing video ads. So you can have these different types of ads that will run on your network, or excuse me, run on their network, which is why you want to create different types of ads. So again, this is one way that I can look at the placements, and I can try to search for ads or sites that specifically I want to target. So let's bring this over here. Coming into the display network. So while you can do the tools planner, you can also come in here and do the display network, and I can see placements here. So I can see actual placements where the ad was shown. How's this? This is a good one, barnesandnoble.com, to have that shown up there. So you'll see where it's being shown, and then you can add additional placements. And again, if you're wondering whether or not a site is accepting ads, probably the best thing to do here is to come into the ad placements and to say ad targeting placements, and then you start searching for ideas. So we did see that Barnes & Noble was accepting, so let's just go ahead and put that in there. So yeah, so it's just showing me that's coming up, and then they're showing different sites that they think might also be relevant because I'm interested in Barnes & Noble. This doesn't guarantee that your ad will be shown on these placements, but this is a way for you to at least have a chance. So it's saying you can go ahead and try targeting these sites. It may or not be shown. Next thing I want to talk about is image ads, and this is also part of the display network. And images are so important, whether you're doing a blog post or an article or it's a page on your site. And for those of us who are joining us next month in the copywriting workshop, we're going to talk a little bit about using images just in your content in general. So, but I'm talking now specifically on the images in your ads, not for your site. So an image ad, I think this is a pretty nice feature who do not have a graphic designer on staff or do not have, you don't have that skill set yourself, you're just a small shop running them, that when you come in here and you go to create an ad, you can choose to say create an image ad. What that does is it scans your website. Now this screenshot that's up here right now, this is also my book blog, but this was taken a few months ago, which is why it looks different than the site we were looking at together. But it's scanning that, and it's going to go ahead and try to pick up the theme and the color in the images to help create the image ad. So what happens after scanning the site, these are the different things that it's suggesting, is that, so here's some, image ads that you might want to use and modify. So you can see this isn't perfect. I don't like the image they pulled. Obviously, I wouldn't have the word company logo in an ad, but this is at least a good starting point. And if we do have some time during the end, I will go ahead and demo this too. I just want to make sure that we get through the rest of this on display and some of the changes for this year. But again, we can come back and I can walk you through this too based on our time at the end. So just some tips though for an image ad. You still have the same kinds of things that will apply. So you've got to have a good call to action. Buy now, download, sign up, learn more, call us, right? So think about those action terms. It's got to be a quality image. So if we go back a little bit, that's not a quality image. So you'll want to change out your images if you need to. The text should be easy to read. So you see I have, book reviews. That's pretty obvious. Not ready to buy, read reviews of new nonfiction and business books. So, that text, that's all pretty clear there. And then again, same thing you might do on Google.com is you want to experiment with some incentives, whether you have a promotion or a coupon, and just to see what works. So next, remarketing, and I did see a couple people who are doing some remarketing, which is good. The remarketing, you use that if you have maybe shopping cart abandonment. You want to get those people who didn't finish a purchase, or people who just visited a site or a specific page of the site. And that's what I mentioned. That's the one that can get a little creepy. If you look at an ad and it's following you around for the rest of the day, that means, you were on a site where they are using remarketing. So kind of the pros and cons of remarketing. And actually, I'm going to back up here before, well, no, I'll do this, and then I'll talk about some other guidelines. So a pro, I do see some lower costs. So I've had some campaigns where maybe a regular Google.com ad could be, $4 per click, and a remarketing ad is maybe 40 cents, so there are some lower costs. Again, you can personalize them to the visitor type. So if your site is, again, I'm using the retail example, rather than just showing an ad to anyone who came to your retail site, if somebody was on your site and then /men's section, then you would want to have people who visited the men's section see remarketing ads about the men's section. So you are getting that personalization based, on where they were on the site. And it is a reminder, there is such a thing to branding, and people need to hear your name and see your brand multiple times before they think to buy from you. So, that is good that it does get your name out there. The cons, that's the first one I said, it can be creepy. So if you feel like you're being followed around the internet, you might want to put a cap on the frequency, so it's maybe not happening more than 3 times a day or whatever amount that feels right to you. There's a little more work to keep it fresh, so you might want to rotate your ads out a little bit more so people aren't constantly seeing the same one. And you might be showing a product to someone who just bought it, or it's not always a buyer. So for example, I have a client who is in the wedding industry, so doing some research for her, for her site. And what happened then is I'm seeing ads relevant to weddings all over the internet. And so I personally am not planning a wedding. I'm not in the market for that, but just because it could be people who just bought it, for people who it's not exactly relevant to. So you have to be careful with some of that. So, but let's talk about building the remarketing list. So I'll show you how you can do your remarketing list. This also will be in your shared library. So you're coming back in here to your campaign. And I have my shared library. And I'm going to be working in audiences. So you can see what this is here. Remarket to people who visited your site before. Now, when you do this, you'll see this should be working, but I noticed that this morning it's saying it's not detecting the code on your site. If you have something like this where you want to do a remarketing campaign and you see this error, come in here into your tag details and it'll walk you through how to implement that. So that's something that your webmaster can help you with. And then your list, again, you can create it. So I will say this is going to be visits to business books. So let me come back in here and I'll do business. And so these are just different business books that I've read. So also visits to business book page or section. So what I'm doing is people who visited a page where it contains that business book URL. List size, probably nobody yet because I hadn't been doing any kind of promotion here. But what you can do if you get that the list is empty, and you might have that if you have a newer site, and that's fine, you can just go ahead and save. And then what it's going to do, assuming your coding is set up correctly, is it's going to start tracking that for you. So, it's going to start to collect data. You see here it's updating. And if you have a high volume site, then it won't take too long before you can see what the list size is, and then you can start having ads specific to people who visited that part of your site. One thing I did want to say about remarketing too is that you want to have remarketing be in its own campaign. So you don't want to have a campaign where you're targeting websites and keywords and remarketing, because remember, your remarketing is going to be people who are somewhat familiar with you. They've come to your site, so they're going to be a different kind of ad than people who have maybe never heard of you before. So that's a very important point. If you are going to get started with remarketing, you really want to make sure that is in a separate campaign. Okay, so before we get into some of these 2015 updates, this little chart here, this isn't a hard and fast rule. This is just kind of my thoughts on what I found to be kind of good steps with people who are newer to AdWords. So when you're starting out, remember that very first slide we talked about the campaign structure. So your campaign, your ad groups, you want to make sure that's really structured well in a way that makes sense to your site. You want to have good ads, right? That's simple, good ads. But what does that mean? That's the one where I showed you have your keyword, your brand, your benefit, your offer. Just make sure that those are really tightly written and that your keywords are very relevant. So that you have those are, not just for retail purchases, but it's very, very specific. So if you had electronics, you wouldn't have a group for computers. You would have desktop, laptop, tablets, so you're getting very specific with your electronics. And then I kind of say this is next steps, but I would say very quickly getting that ad extensions in that we talked about. Those are really important for your ads. The ad scheduling, and that you'll see maybe over time where it's, you don't want to have those midnight shoppers. And then those locations. And then this one, I say advanced. It's not necessarily that it's an advanced concept, but it may not be your first thing, is to take a look at the display network. And I would do search and display campaigns differently because you have different buying behaviors. Search, they're looking for something. And then display would be more, they're on weather.com because they want to see if it's going to rain today, but they don't want to, they're not necessarily shopping for something. The image ads, that's nice to have on the display network that can stand out, and then the remarketing to get to the people who had visited your site before. So let's take a few minutes. We'll talk about some of the updates before we go into the Q&A time. So this one, since we were just talking about display, I'm just showing this to you first. This one is fairly new, and the purpose is to try to help you think through your display campaigns. So rather than just jumping right in and saying, okay, new display campaign, this is trying to help you think about your goals. So do you want people just to see your ad? You're just trying to get your name, your brand out there. Do you want people to visit your site? And that I think would probably be a common one, is you want people to go and visit your website and do some kind of action. And then again, drive action, so if it's buy on your site for remarketing or do an action or call a business. So I tend to jump right in, but if you're starting with display campaigns, you might like this interface to try to figure out, kind of help you along on how you might want to create a display campaign for the first time. This display summary, this is fairly new. I've noticed in my account that on your display network, you'll see summary data about your campaigns. So right here for this particular one, it's just telling me at a glance, we've had 1,800 clicks. I see that on the left. Then I see my CTR, so my click-through rate's about 0.5%. All the way to the right, I see the cost. So that's just, again, a summary. With this one too, when I look at my display network tab, I do like to get into the details and look specifically at placements or information about my remarketing. But if you want just at a glance, this is a little bit newer too. And here it just shows you, for people who like to look in terms of charts and not just the numbers or the raw data, then that's where you can get this information. Upgraded URLs. So this is straight from Google. That this was something, I think they made this change in July, where instead of a destination URL, they had a final URL. But what I want you to see here, though, is it says if you don't use tracking, you won't need to change a thing. So if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I have no idea what you mean by tracking on my URLs, then you're fine. You don't have anything that you have to worry about or to change. This is for people who had some kind of additional tools that they were using to track their AdWords activity, so that would be where this upgraded URLs came in. So again, the destination URL is in your ad. It's what brings people to your page, right? They click, and the destination is where on the page that they land. The final URL is the same thing. So it just basically the terminology destination URL, that that's going to be retiring. This third point, this is the point is going to apply to 99% probably of people on the call here today, is that you don't have any kind of change if you're not doing a third-party tracking. So don't worry about whether it's a final or destination. It's the same. It goes to the same landing page on your site. If you do have something where you do a third-party tracking and you've been using AdWords for a while, you probably received some kind of notification in your account already. The purpose is that if you do third-party tracking, this is supposed to make it a little bit easier for you to manage it at scale. So just very quick, and then I'm going to keep moving on to the other changes. If you have, mywebsite.com, and you want to have this tracking template to see exactly which keyword got people to the ad, and you see all this crazy stuff here. Again, this is a way just for people who want to do additional tracking in their accounts. So again, if you don't understand what I'm talking about with final or destination, then don't worry about that at all. If you did see some kind of notification in your account about this changing, then you're going to want to get back in and kind of do a little more homework about that third-party tracking. And this is what you'll see here. So it's just the, tracking template, setup options, and blah blah blah. So this is something that you would walk through to set up third-party tracking for your ads. The report editor. Some of you may not see this in your account yet. This is something that they are going to be rolling out over the next couple months, and it's for people who like to drag and drop information into reports. Whether you have a pie chart or whatever kind of charts that you like to use, this shows you're just dragging the columns in. This is another one. I just kind of pull this clip over, and then I'm going to show you in my account. So it's saying, okay, we're looking at mobile and desktop for a bar chart. And then we're saying, well, let's look at those same things, mobile and desktop, and let's look at it as a pie chart instead. And then, again, you can keep going, and I'm going to say, well, I want to look at that as a line chart. So that's what this report thing, and it just started rolling out this month. And I do believe, in the next couple months, you should see this option in all of your accounts. And I'll show you where to look for that if you don't have it yet. Is you see up here, you have reports. You may not see that in your account yet. Let me pull that up for you a minute. And I'll just say, very quickly, I want to do a pie chart. And I want to look at clicks and region. And so this is overly simplified, but just to show you quickly that it's that drag and drop. So you can create different kinds of charts in here. And again, you will start seeing that over the next couple months. So don't panic if you look in your account and you don't see this yet here, this reports. Again, within a couple months, you should have that feature. And then the other thing for those of you who manage multiple accounts, that you can now manage your campaigns at scale. So you can look at all of your campaigns together, and basically the simplified version is do a bunch of these things at the same time. So you update your budgets, you set filters, apply segments, and for those of you who are just with one company, you're not with an agency that you're managing accounts, the best example I can give where this might be useful is if you have different locations or franchises, that you would be able to come in here and say, okay, you know what, we were doing all of these at $100 per day, but I want to do this, I want to change the budgets, and all of our franchises or divisions, we want to change that to $80 per day. So you would come in and do this change budgets and just do that at scale. So that's relatively new, is being able to do a number of those changes at the same time. Again, that's only going to be relevant if you have, if you manage a pretty big account. So those are just, again, some of those highlights of the things to look at for this year. And I know now we're doing good here on time, that I can go back over a couple things, or we'll probably go ahead and take the initial questions that we have. If we want to go ahead and turn that over to you, Krista.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tina. I would now like to take your questions. To ask a question, select the Q&A pod in the lower left corner of your screen. Then type and send your question that way. Please phrase your question directly and as briefly as possible. All right, our first question, it was, can you explain the call out again?
Okay, great. Yes, let me go ahead back over to that. And because I did see that come in earlier, and it would probably make the most sense if I pull it up here on the screen. So if you bear with me while this is loading, I want to show this to you in this account. So the call out extensions, these are when you have something that you want to feature about your business, but that you don't have that link. So we go back to the JCPenney sandals and flip-flops. If I were to click on that, it would take me to that sandals and flip-flops page. So a call out text, this is something that would has the potential to display on your ad, but it doesn't take people anywhere. So a call out text might be free shipping. So it doesn't need to take them to a page about free shipping, but it's something about you that you want to highlight. So free shipping 23/7 20. Wow, sorry guys, hang on. Okay, so 24/7 service. So maybe you don't have a page about that, but you want to highlight the 24/7 service. Or another one might be free shipping over $50. So again, the key with call out, it's just things that you want to highlight specifically about you. It doesn't take them anywhere to your site. It's just it's just a little highlight underneath your ad, and you can see you don't have a whole lot of room. I think it's about 25 characters. So that would be a call out, and I think those are also helpful to put on there. So that's a good question. Hopefully that clarified that for you.
Okay, super. The next question, is there a specific remarketing tool that works with shopping campaigns?
There is, and I have not done a whole lot in that area. I know that you can do, trying to think, I may not be answering this question very well, and I apologize since I haven't done quite as much there, but you can do the shopping or those PLA campaigns. So if they're shopping a section of your site, that can come up in the search results, that they're going to see an ad specifically for something that they already looked for. So the short version, again, not extremely helpful to you maybe, is that you are able to do these product listing ads, as remarketing. So the same way other content of your site would display, you could do that for products as well.
Okay. Next question. Dynamic RSLA remarketing. What are the differences?
Okay, so the RLSA, those are remarketing lists for search ads. So meaning that you can also, not just, I've been talking about remarketing in terms of display, but you can customize your search ad campaigns for people who visited your site. So that's the same thing so that's what that is, that RLSA is remarketing lists for search ads. The dynamic would be for people who have just an incredible amount of content on their site. So, if you have hundreds and hundreds of products, or just tons of pages, so that, again, that's a very short, vague explanation. But so if it's dynamic, think about that. If you're a really big site with just a number of things on there, that's when you would think about dynamic. And then the remarketing is kind of, the way I tend to think of that is that's something all of us can use. Whether you're a big site or a small site, if somebody visited this section of your site, you can continue to remarket and follow them around the web.
Okay, great. Next question. Although we use display for remarketing, we have not looked into personalization based on where they visited on the website. How can we do this?
Okay, let me pull back my count up for that one. So let's cancel here. So I'm going to come back into my shared library, and the audiences, the remarketing list, this would be like where I had gave the example of somebody who visited just the business books. So if somebody is only looking for fiction, that that I wouldn't want to target business book reviews to them. So, but somebody who visited this section, they came to the book blog and worked their way in through the label about business books. That's where I came in and said that I want to create a list of visits to the business book section. The other thing I'll note is, not getting into Google Analytics today, but I will suggest going into your Google Analytics account, just kind of drilling in there a little bit and looking at segments. So if you want to make a note of this to look up later, is Google Analytics and segments. You can start to create segments that way too. So you can create a segment based on visit to a specific part of your site. You can do a segment for people who visited the site 2 times, for people who are from South Carolina. So what you can do in analytics is you can build up those lists and create those audiences. So again, in Google Analytics, look at segments, and then just do a little look about remarketing, and you'll look at how you can use your analytics data to build up some audiences there too.
All right. Next question. Can you quickly review the URL tracking?
So the URL tracking. Okay, so that is, let me come back a couple slides here. So for now URL tracking, we're talking about the upgraded URLs. What this is, if you use some kind of third-party solution, that you have some kind of parameters where you're, getting into all this crazy stuff with things that you're tracking beyond what's in AdWords. This was some kind of change that happened I guess it was implemented in July, where final and destination, Google's just kind of changing that terminology. So basically, if you don't understand anything I'm talking about when I say third-party tracking, don't worry about this at all. If you think, oh, that's right, I do remember seeing a message about that, this would be something that you'd have to do a little bit, do a little bit more exploring just to make sure that you are continuing to track things the way you want to track them because of this change implemented. So again, this is called the upgraded URLs, and it has to do with third-party tracking.
Okay, great. The next question. What is a good CTR?
Okay, I get that question a lot, and I don't even know for sure where I saw this number or if this is something that I'm making up, but I usually think maybe around 1% is a good one. The vague answer, which is kind of annoying because it's a non-answer, is I would say a good CTR is the one that gets you a good return on investment. And you think, okay, well, that's not helpful at all. What I look at, if it's really, really low, that you see like 0.3% or something, that would probably indicate to me that those campaigns really maybe just need some cleanup. If you have a click-through rate of, let's say it's something like 10, 15%, that one I would say you have a problem. You probably have a lot of broad terms in there. So you're getting people who aren't necessarily buying, you know what I mean? You're getting people who are bored or are looking for free, cheap. So I would just, and again, that 1% is the one I keep coming up with, and it might change by industry. But again, I would say following that data all the way through to your analytics, and I'm a big fan of analytics, I talk about it all the time, is that when you see that full path, that kind of tells you what's a good click-through rate, because even if your click-through rate is maybe 0.4, but you see that a lot of those are converting when you look into your analytics, then 0.4 is a great click-through rate for you. So yeah, that's a good question. That's a common one.
Excellent. Our next question, why does it say none in the add and excluded column for negative keywords?
I'm trying to, I don't remember seeing that. Let me just come on over here quick and see if, oh, okay. Okay, great. I see what you're talking about. So what happened here is that somebody searched on Goodreads book reviews, and I didn't add it or exclude it. So by not excluding it, some variation of it may come up again. If I were to add it, I can say, Goodreads book reviews, and then I can get specific about if I want it to be phrase or exact, or if I want to say this is worth 20 cents or $2. So for right now, none just means I didn't take any kind of action on it.
Okay, great. Next question. Can you walk through the remarketing audience setup?
Well, the setup of it is, if you come in here to your remarketing to set it up, and you don't see, like you'll see a green light here, it means that you're good to go. So it'll be green, and so you're all set, and then you can go and create your list, and it's going to start collecting data. So again, it'll collect your list on your visits to a specific section. The setting it up really varies by different, how your site is. So this is the Google support file. So it would be hard. I wouldn't really be able to give you the specific instructions for it, other than to say that you want to look in here for what needs to be added to the site. I will say, depending on your website, I build sites in WordPress, so I'm a big WordPress user. And if you have a site like that or something similar, you can do these little plugins, and it's just this little quick change on your site, and then you're all set to go with your remarketing. If you have a different type of site, or it's very custom, then probably your webmaster might need to go in and do this code, just on the header for each of the page, or hopefully you have some kind of template. So again, depending on your site and sending, you can do this kind of thing here where you're sending the instructions to your webmaster, and that should be enough for him or her to add it. But again, once it's good to go, you can start building your list here based on certain criteria, or you can go over to Google Analytics and build your list.
All right, great. Next question. What is your suggested schedule to start campaigning with?
So suggested schedule, I'm going to assume that you mean, let me come back here. I'm going to assume you literally mean just here, this ad schedule. Unless you have a clear case for not going after certain hours, I would just go ahead and leave it for 7 days a week, doing the 24/7. Especially if you're new to advertising, or you're really not quite sure about your audience, then this is something you might want to just say, all right, we don't know, let's just do 24/7 for a while, but let's watch it closely, and then you start looking for where maybe you have something weird about your business, and the people on Monday never ever buy. You're looking at months of data, and your Monday visitors just don't buy. Well, then that's when you might make the decision to exclude Monday. But if you're not sure, and again, you don't have a specific use case, well, then I would go ahead and just leave it at 24/7 initially.
Okay. Next question. Typically, how do you charge for campaign management? Commission plus cost, or do you do a flat fee?
Well, I can tell you what I do personally, and then I would say if you're asking this question because you are looking at a third-party agency, I would honestly say a number that you're comfortable with. I think for me, I don't work on commission, because what can happen is if I come back to a client and I say, you know what, this campaign's doing terrible, we've got to make some changes to the landing page to see some improvement, and they won't make those changes, well, then I'm just going to lose, I can't win. It just doesn't give me enough to work with, if I have a situation like that. What I tend to do is for me personally, I charge a flat monthly fee. I don't do it on the spend, I do it on the complexity of the account. So if I have a client who has 20 campaigns, or they're targeting 10 states differently, whether they're doing 500 a month or 5,000 a month, if it's something like that, that's going to be complex. I know it's going to be a lot more time. Now, you might have some companies that are going to, maybe do it by commission, but if that's the case, again, they're going to really expect you to work with them. So if you say, I want to rank on the first page for our ads, but I want to spend 20 cents and I don't want a landing page. I want everyone to go to the home page. Well, that's going to be a problem. But I generally I do a flat monthly based on the complexity of the account.
All right, super. Next question. Can you go over display network keywords again?
Sure. So so when we're on our search network, we're looking at just the words that are going to be on Google.com. With the display keywords, we are saying that it's maybe a little bit looser than topic targeting. So if I want to be on a page that is dedicated to sports, right? So that would be a topic of sports. But if I want to have keywords that are, about sports, it could be that the site isn't totally about sports, but there's some articles there that talk about sports. So I'm saying I want to target to the keywords on those pages. And again, we're not talking about Google.com. So the idea of keywords matching still applies, but we've got search is Google.com. And then the display would be, everything else like the weather.com. And again, it could be the targeting just for those keywords, or you can get really tight. Like you're saying, I want to do a topic. I want to target the topic of sports, but I'm also going to include some keywords because I really want to get on the pages about baseball. So you might use those methods together, and then you're getting a really, really tight audience.
Okay, next question. Can you do a quick overview of labeling? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by labeling. So I don't know if we can maybe go to the next question. If the person who asked that wouldn't mind clarifying it, just so I make sure I understand. That sounds super. So actually, campaign. She just missed campaign labeling.
Oh, okay. That's actually a feature that I don't use. So it's interesting you mention it. So the campaign labeling, it's just a way to organize you apply labels to either your keywords, your campaigns, or your groups. So I guess it's like they're basically custom categories for you to review your data. So I apologize, I don't have anything more for you than that because for me personally, I haven't seen a need for it yet that I just, I go based on my campaign names. So that actually might be one that I need to look into a little bit more myself. So that I just know it's another way of categorizing, but it's not something that I've been using.
Okay, great. Next question. Should I see list sizes on all of the auto-created lists?
You should. So I assume you're talking about the remarketing, and what you noticed here is, I had been collecting it, and then like I said, I noticed this morning, I don't know if maybe I'm having issues with the tag, that it's not collecting it. But you should see it over time, that you should see the list size for display and for the Google search. If you're not seeing it, if you're not seeing it and you created it today, I wouldn't worry about that. If you're not seeing it and you have the green light, it's running and there's nothing seems to be collecting, you might want to just go back and make sure that you created it correctly. Or, again, if it's everything looks like it's supposed to be doing, then you might just have to submit the request to support. And I will say AdWords support has actually really been pretty good. I mean, I'm probably there once a week for something if I have a client account I'm having issues with. So they will respond quickly, and it always helps that you do it from the screen where you're having trouble. So in this case, if I were saying this was running for 6 months, I had the green light, why is there nothing here? Including the screen helps them with the troubleshooting.
All right, great. That was the last question. If you did not have an opportunity to ask your question, please email your question to jmurphy, that's M-U-R-P-H-Y, at pbp.com. Again, that was jmurphy at pbp.com, and your conference producer will be glad to respond. I'll now turn it back to you, Tina, for some closing remarks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Krista. The one thing I just will say, because I know there was so much information thrown at you today, is that the one takeaway is the negative keyword list. So, and I have my contact information here if there is a follow-up question, but if you just do one thing to get started with, it's getting those negative keywords in so you're not paying for clicks that aren't going to bring you revenue.
Okay. Thank you, Tina. Progressive Business Conferences would like to thank you for attending today's webinar. We would like to give some closing information, which is also listed on your dial-in instruction sheets. If you would like to purchase a recording of this conference, you may do so by calling 800-964-6033 or using the enclosed order form. And again, we encourage you to complete and return the evaluation form to us. On behalf of Progressive Business Conferences, I would like to thank you for attending the webinar. This concludes our program.